The universe had never feared humanity. To the greater galactic powers, Earth was just another primitive world, its inhabitants weak, short-lived, and technologically inferior. The Zalrek Dominion, a vast empire of reptilian warlords, saw the planet as nothing more than a resource depot and a breeding ground for slave labor. When their warships darkened Earth's skies, no help came. No cosmic alliance intervened. Humanity was alone. The invasion was swift, brutal, and absolute. Orbital bombardments shattered cities, and biological suppressants kept the survivors docile. Within months, the Zalrek had culled Earth's population to a fraction of its former size, selecting only the strongest for labor camps on far-off worlds. The rest were discarded, eliminated as mere excess waste. The proud nations of Earth fell without a whimper, their weapons laughable against the Zalrek's advanced technology. Humanity had become nothing more than livestock. Across the galaxy, human slaves toiled in mines, built warships they would never pilot, and fought in bloodsport arenas for the amusement of their masters. The Zalrek found them unremarkable, frail creatures of flesh and bone. Yet, as they learned in the coming decades, they had made a grievous mistake. They had underestimated the human spirit. Among the captives, whispers of rebellion spread like wildfire. In the labor camps, humans studied the Zalrek's technology, their ships, their weapons, waiting, watching, learning. A legend grew among the enslaved, the tale of the lost sons of Earth, a group of escaped prisoners who had vanished into the void, rumored to be amassing an army in the farthest reaches of space. The Zalrek dismissed such stories as the desperate fantasies of broken creatures. But the rumors were true. In the ruins of a forgotten moon, hidden from the prying eyes of their oppressors, the survivors of Earth had forged something terrifying, a fleet of stolen ships, reverse-engineered weapons, and warriors unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They did not fight for conquest or power. They fought for survival. And now, after decades of silence, they were ready. Humanity would no longer be prey. It was time for the hunt to begin, ***. The Zalrek Dominion did not believe in ghosts. They ruled through brutal efficiency, and their empire stretched across hundreds of systems. Their war fleets had crushed dozens of rebellions before they could even spark into true resistance. To them, humans were just another conquered species, another broken race subjugated beneath their iron talons. That was why they barely reacted when a routine resource convoy, 3 supply freighters, 2 escort frigates, vanished in the dead of space. The Zalrek attributed it to a navigational error, perhaps a pirate raid. The losses were insignificant. Then a second convoy disappeared. Then a third. By the time the fourth vanished without a distress call, without so much as a single fragment of wreckage left behind, the Zalrek could no longer ignore the pattern. Someone, or something, was hunting them. ###aboard the Shadow of Vengeance. Captain Elias Voss studied the display before him, his sharp eyes taking in the latest intelligence reports from intercepted Zalrek transmissions. The enemy was growing uneasy. Perfect. Voss had once been a slave, toiling in the hellish sulfur mines of Korak 9. He had watched his family die under Zalrek whips, had been beaten, starved, and left for dead. But he survived. He learned. And when the opportunity came, he killed his overseers, stole a transport, and disappeared into the void. Now, he commanded the Shadow of Vengeance, a warship unlike anything in the Zalrek fleet. It was human ingenuity at its deadliest, a patchwork of stolen technology, reinforced with scavenged alloys, reverse-engineered plasma weapons, and something far more dangerous, human adaptability. His fleet was small, but it was efficient. A handful of stolen destroyers, a dozen fighters, and a growing network of operatives embedded deep within the Dominion. They had spent years studying Zalrek tactics, exploiting weaknesses, and striking only when the enemy was most vulnerable. They weren't waging a war. Not yet. They were teaching the Zalrek fear. ###the hunt begins. The next target was the Varesha's Might, a Zalrek heavy cruiser escorting a critical shipment of weapons and supplies to the front lines of their latest conquest. The Zalrek believed the warship to be untouchable, its shields impenetrable, its defenses overwhelming. Voss smiled. They would never see it coming. From the darkness of an asteroid field, humanity struck. The shadow of vengeance and its squadron emerged from the void, their ships cloaked in sensor-disrupting interference fields. By the time the Zalrek realized they were under attack, it was too late. Explosions tore through the Varesh's might as sabotage teams, already embedded within the ship's crew, disabled critical systems from within. Elite human commandos, those who had once been slaves, gladiators, and survivors of the Dominion's cruelty, stormed the ship in coordinated, ruthless efficiency. The Zalrek fought back, but they were unprepared for an enemy that did not fight by their rules. Humanity did not fight for honor or glory. They fought to win. By the time the battle ended, the Varesh's might was no longer Zalrek property. It now bore a new insignia, the sigil of the lost sons of Earth. A message was sent to the Zalrek High Command. A simple transmission, but one that sent shockwaves through the Dominion. We remember Earth. We remember the chains. Now, you will remember us. The Zalrek Dominion did not react with fear. Not yet. They reacted with rage. News of the Varesh's might's loss spread quickly through the highest echelons of Zalrek command. The Dominion had crushed countless species, had extinguished rebellions before they could even take root. Never had a slave race, especially one as insignificant as humanity, struck back in such a bold, calculated attack. The Zalrek Emperor, Zalrates, did not see this as a war. He saw it as an insult. And insults demanded blood. His response was brutal. Across the Dominion, humans still in captivity were gathered, interrogated, and executed by the thousands. Cities where humans lived and worked were burned to ash, entire colonies wiped from existence. The Emperor believed that fear would break them. That the surviving rebels would see their people suffer and surrender. But he had made the same mistake his ancestors had made when they first enslaved humanity. He had underestimated them. ###A spark in the darkness. In the hidden war rooms of the Lost Sons of Earth, Captain Elias Voss watched in grim silence as the reports came in. Mass executions. Entire planets purged. The Zalrek had decided to retaliate with slaughter. They think we'll break, said Commander Lin Tran, a former resistance leader from Earth's last battlefields. They still don't understand us. They will, Voss said. The Varesh's might, now renamed Iron Revenant, had been refitted and integrated into the growing human fleet. Every battle won gave them more weapons, more ships, and more defectors. Even among the Zalrek, not all were loyal to the Emperor. Some had seen the brutality of their own kind and wanted out. And others? They simply feared what was coming. Because the Zalrek weren't fighting a conventional war anymore. They were being hunted. ###rebellion ignites. The brutality of the Emperor's wrath did not have the intended effect. Instead of breaking humanity, it united them. Across the Dominion, sleeper cells activated. Humans who had lived as servants and slaves suddenly became saboteurs and assassins. Food shipments were poisoned. Weapons depots detonated in firestorms. Spaceports became charnel houses as Zalrek officers were found with their throats slit, their security codes stolen. The most daring strike came from the gladiator pits of Zadkur, the Zalrek capital's most infamous bloodsport arena. There, a former human pit fighter, Marcus Hale, once thought to be the Dominion's most prized slave, led an uprising within the arena itself. The moment the execution orders for human slaves were issued, he and his fellow gladiators turned on their Zalrek masters, slaughtering the guards with stolen weapons. The uprising spread beyond the pits, igniting a riot within the capital's underbelly that saw an entire district burned to the ground before the Zalrek could contain it. By the time the dust settled, Hale and his warriors were gone, taken into the void by rebel ships that had been waiting for them. The galaxy had been watching. The other conquered races had been watching. And now, they saw something they had never seen before. Hope. ### the turning point. The Zalrek High Command was now in chaos. What had begun as a mere annoyance had turned into something else. Something dangerous. The Dominion had always ruled through fear, through overwhelming force. But force was nothing against an enemy that struck from the shadows and disappeared before retaliation could come. The human rebels did not fight like an army. They fought like a virus. And now, the infection was spreading. The Zalrek Dominion was beginning to understand something terrifying. This was not a rebellion. This was an extermination. Across the Empire, their warships were vanishing, their supply lines crumbling, their officers found dead in their own strongholds. The human insurgents did not engage in grand battles or direct confrontation, they struck from the shadows, dismantling the Empire piece by piece. Every system lost to sabotage and assassination was a wound that would not heal. The Zalrek had ruled for millennia with brute strength, but strength meant nothing when your enemy refused to fight on your terms. #The Assassin's Gambit. Deep in the heart of the Dominion, on the storm-racked world of Kael'vas, a Zalrek intelligence facility housed something the rebels desperately needed, a list of compromised human agents within the Dominion. If retrieved, they could save their people. If lost, their most valuable spies would be exposed and executed. Captain Elias Voss knew what had to be done. A team of human operatives infiltrated the facility, moving with deadly precision. They were ghosts in the night, assassinating guards in silence, hacking into the Dominion's heavily encrypted database. But just as they secured the data, an alert sounded. They had been expected. A trap. Zalrek death squads poured into the facility, cutting off all escape routes. The rebels fought viciously, their enhanced human reflexes and adaptive strategies keeping them alive longer than they should have, but the odds were overwhelming. One by one, they fell. Only 2 made it out alive, Voss and an elite operative known only as Shade. Wounded and pursued by Zalrek hunters, they barely escaped the planet, forced to leave the bodies of their comrades behind. But the mission had not been in vain. Because they hadn't just stolen the list of compromised agents. They had found something else. Something far worse. The Emperor's Doomsday Project. Hidden in the classified Zalrek files was a chilling revelation, Project Extinction. The Emperor had finally abandoned the idea of crushing humanity through conventional means. Instead, he was preparing to erase them entirely. A bioweapon. One designed specifically to target human DNA. The Zalrek scientists had already begun testing it on captured human populations, watching as entire colonies withered and died in days. Once completed, the weapon would be deployed to every world where humanity still existed. There would be no war. No negotiations. No survivors. The race against oblivion. The knowledge sent shockwaves through the resistance. They had been winning the war of attrition, breaking the Dominion piece by piece. But now, time was against them. The Emperor had abandoned all notions of conquest and enslavement. This was no longer a rebellion. This was a countdown to extinction. And humanity had only one option left. They had to strike first. The Zalrek Dominion had always considered itself unshakable. Its emperor, Zalrates, had ruled with an iron fist for centuries, crushing any defiance before it could take root. But now, for the first time in its long history, the Empire was afraid. Not of armies. Not of warships. But of humanity. The assassinations, the sabotage, the disappearing fleets, it had become clear that this was no mere rebellion. The humans weren't trying to win battles. They were dismantling the very foundation of the Dominion, one piece at a time. And now, with the discovery of Project Extinction, they had no choice but to accelerate their war. The Emperor had made a fatal mistake. He had shown humanity his hand. Now, humanity would strike at his throat. Operation Godslayer. In the cold void of space, aboard the Shadow of Vengeance, Captain Elias Voss gathered his most trusted operatives. Around the war table, hardened warriors, assassins, and strategists stood in silence as he laid out the plan. The target, Emperor Zalrates. The mission, infiltrate the heart of the Dominion, the imperial throne world of Zorath, and kill him before Project Extinction could be completed. It was a suicide mission. The Imperial Palace was a fortress, protected by entire legions of Zalrek elite warriors, automated defenses, and shields so impenetrable that even a fleet of warships couldn't break through. But Voss and his team weren't bringing a fleet. They were bringing a scalpel. Using stolen Zalrek clearance codes, the Shadow of Vengeance would slip past the outer defenses disguised as a returning Dominion patrol ship. Once inside the atmosphere, the infiltration team, Voss, Shade, Marcus Hale, and a handful of their best operatives, would land undetected, breach the palace, and eliminate the Emperor. Everything relied on precision, deception, and speed. Because once the first shot was fired, there would be no turning back. #### the infiltration. The plan worked, at first. The Shadow of Vengeance cleared the outer security, slipping into Zoratha's heavily fortified orbit without raising suspicion. The infiltration team deployed via drop pods, landing in the lower city beneath the palace. For the first time in history, humans walked freely on the Zalrek homeworld. And they came as Reapers. Moving through the shadows, they bypassed security patrols, using stolen codes and deep cover assets to gain access to the palace's lower levels. Inside, they moved with deadly precision, cutting down guards in silence, disabling security systems, and planting explosives along key structural points. Then, as they neared the Emperor's throne room, something went wrong. They had been expected. The palace doors sealed shut. Automated turrets descended from the walls. And from the shadows, Zalrek warriors emerged, their plasma blades igniting in the darkness. A trap. The Emperor had known they were coming. And he was waiting for them. #### the battle for Zorath. The throne room erupted into chaos. Human and Zalrek clashed in brutal close-quarters combat, plasma fire and steel carving through flesh. Marcus Hale, the former gladiator, tore through enemy ranks with twin Zalrek blades, his movements honed by years of bloodsport. Shade, the elusive assassin, moved like a ghost, striking and vanishing before the enemy could react. Voss himself engaged the Emperor's personal guard, his stolen Zalrek rifle spitting death with each shot. But for every enemy they cut down, more took their place. Then, the throne itself shifted. From behind the massive obsidian structure, a figure emerged. Emperor Zalrates. Towering above them, his golden war armor gleaming with energy, he was no mere ruler sitting upon a throne. He was a warrior. A monster. The conqueror of 1,000 worlds. With a single gesture, the room's gravity shifted, an artificial field slamming the human rebels to their knees. Voss gritted his teeth, fighting against the overwhelming force as the Emperor approached. "You are insects," Zalrates growled, his voice reverberating through the chamber. "You have scurried in the dark for long enough. I will crush your pathetic rebellion here and now." He raised a massive, clawed gauntlet, charged with crackling plasma energy, and reached for Voss's throat. And then, the explosives detonated, The entire palace shook as fire and debris tore through its foundations. The explosives the team had planted earlier had been remotely triggered by Shade, destabilizing the structure. The sudden shockwave disrupted the Emperor's gravity field, giving the rebels a single moment to act. Marcus Hale lunged first, driving a stolen Zalrek blade into the Emperor's side. Zalrates roared in pain but did not fall. Voss raised his rifle, took aim, and fired. The shot punched through the Emperor's skull, burning through flesh and bone. For the first time in centuries, a Zalrek Emperor fell. #### the aftermath. The moment Zalrates died, the entire empire trembled. The rebels fought their way back to the extraction point, escaping in stolen transports as chaos erupted across Zorath. Without their emperor, the Dominion's leadership was thrown into disarray. Power struggles erupted among the high-ranking warlords, each vying for control. And as they turned on each other, humanity seized the opportunity. From the shadows, the full force of the lost sons of Earth emerged. Fleets that had been gathering in secret now struck openly. Conquered races saw their chance and rose in rebellion. The war was no longer unseen. The war was here. And humanity was no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for domination. The Emperor was dead. The Zalrek Dominion, once an unbreakable empire that had ruled for millennia, now stood on the brink of collapse. But humanity knew that an empire doesn't die quietly. Even as Zalrek warlords turned on each other, carving the Dominion into fractured factions, the real war had just begun. The Dominion's fleets still outnumbered the human resistance 100 to 1. Entire sectors were still under tight Zalrek control, and billions of humans remained in chains across the galaxy. Killing the Emperor had been the first step. Now, humanity had to finish what they started. #### the struggle for power. In the aftermath of Zalradiz's death, the Dominion fell into chaos. Without a single ruler to unify them, rival warlords and ambitious generals scrambled for control. Some sought to restore the empire, others to carve out their own kingdoms. But among them, one name sent a chill through even the most hardened Zalrek warriors. High Warlord Threxus. Unlike his rivals, Threxus did not see humanity as a nuisance to be crushed, he saw them for what they were. Predators. And predators only grow stronger when you wound them. Where the old emperor had relied on brute force, Threxus adapted. He gathered the Dominion's most ruthless warlords, forged uneasy alliances, and reorganized what remained of the Zalrek war machine. Under his command, the Dominion did not retreat. They evolved. And they prepared to wage war the way humanity did, through deception, precision, and overwhelming ruthlessness. #### the final phase of war. The battle lines were drawn. On one side, the Dominion, wounded, fractured, but still possessing the largest fleets in the galaxy. Under Threxus's leadership, they adapted to human tactics, employing ambush warfare, deep cover infiltrators, and psychological warfare to dismantle the rebellion from within. On the other, humanity, fewer in number, but growing stronger with every battle. They had technology stolen from the Zalrek, but they had something even more dangerous, experience they had learned from their time in the shadows, perfecting the art of asymmetric warfare. The resistance no longer fought like a desperate insurgency. Now, they fought like an apex predator culling the weak. #### the conquered rise. But humanity was not alone. For centuries, the Dominion had enslaved and butchered other species, ruling through terror and brutality. Now, those species had seen something they had never thought possible. They had seen the Zalrek bleed. From the distant star systems of the Karate to the warlike Ralzon clans, once subjugated civilizations rose up in rebellion. They saw what humanity had done, what humanity had become, and they chose to follow. But they did not fight for freedom. They fought for revenge. For the first time in galactic history, the predator-prey dynamic had been reversed. Humanity did not just want to win. They wanted to hunt. #### the reckoning at Orcs 7. The final battle came over Orcs 7, a fortress world that had once served as the beating heart of the Dominion's war machine. It was here that High Warlord Threxus made his stand, rallying the Dominion's fractured fleets into one last desperate attempt to crush humanity and restore Zalrek supremacy. He believed the humans would come in scattered strikes, attacking his supply lines, using their old hit-and-run tactics. He was wrong. They came in force. The combined fleets of humanity and its newfound allies emerged from the void in an overwhelming storm of fire and steel. The Shadow of Vengeance led the charge, followed by the stolen Iron Revenant, now refitted into the most powerful warship in human history. For the first time, humanity did not fight from the shadows. They came as conquerors. Orcs 7 became a graveyard. Threxus fought to the bitter end, unleashing everything he had, but it wasn't enough. His warships burned, his armies shattered. And in the final hour of battle, as his command ship was breached, he faced Elias Voss himself. "You were never slaves," Threxus growled, blood dripping from his lips. "You were always monsters." Voss aimed his plasma rifle at the last warlord of the Dominion. "No," he said. "We learned from monsters." He pulled the trigger. And the last great warlord of the Zalrek fell. ####The hunters take the throne. With Orcs 7 reduced to ruins and the last of the Dominion warlords dead, humanity stood on the precipice of something new. Victory. The Dominion was gone. The last chains had been broken. Humanity was no longer a species of survivors, no longer a scattered rebellion. They were something else now. The galaxy had watched as they tore down the empire that had once enslaved them. And now, the question remained, what would humanity do with its newfound power? Elias Voss stood at the bridge of the shadow of vengeance, staring at the void before him. The resistance had won, but peace was an illusion. A power vacuum had been created. The galaxy was in chaos. And in chaos, only the strongest survived. The choice was clear. Humanity would not just survive. They would rule. The war was over. The Zalrek Dominion, the brutal empire that had once enslaved humanity, was gone. Its warlords lay dead, its fleets were shattered, and its throne world lay in ruins. The once mighty rulers of the galaxy were now nothing more than scattered remnants, desperately clinging to life in the outer reaches of space. But peace did not come. Because power despises a vacuum. And now, the greatest predators in the galaxy were left with a choice. Would humanity step back and allow another empire to rise? Or would they seize the throne for themselves? ###The Last War Council. Aboard the Shadow of Vengeance, the War Council of humanity's leaders gathered one last time. Representatives from every major resistance cell, from every surviving colony, from the shattered remnants of Earth itself, all had come to decide the fate of their species. Some, like Admiral Karras of the Lunar Expanse, argued for restraint. Humanity had won its freedom, but was it worth risking becoming the very thing they had fought against? Others, like Elias Voss, saw things differently. "We don't get to walk away from this," he said, his voice cutting through the tension. "We didn't just kill an empire. We replaced it." The silence in the chamber was deafening. Because they all knew he was right. The galaxy was in chaos. The races once enslaved by the Zalrek were now warring among themselves, desperate for resources, for stability, for vengeance. If humanity did not take control, someone else would, someone potentially worse. The choice was clear. Humanity would rise. Not as survivors. Not as rebels. But as rulers. ###The Terran Dominion is born. The message was sent across the galaxy. The Terran Dominion had been established. The old way of things was over. The age of galactic empires ruled by lesser beings had ended. Humanity, forged in the fires of war, would bring order to the stars. They were not here to ask for peace. They were here to enforce it. Zalrek slave worlds were taken under human control, their former masters now the ones in chains. The other species of the galaxy were given a simple choice: swear allegiance to the Dominion and be granted protection. Resist, and be eliminated. ****. Some called them monsters. Some called them saviors. Humanity didn't care. They knew the truth. The strong ruled. The weak perished. And humanity was done being weak. ###The extinction of the Zalrek. Across the outer edges of the galaxy, the last remnants of the Zalrek Dominion fled, hoping to escape humanity's wrath. But there was nowhere to run. Voss and his forces hunted them relentlessly. The final warlord strongholds fell, one by one, until only a single fleet remained, a desperate gathering of the last Zalrek warriors, hiding in the dark void between galaxies. Voss did not send them an ultimatum. He did not offer them mercy. He sent them extinction. The Shadow of Vengeance led the assault, burning the last of the Zalrek from the stars. There would be no remnants. No resurgence. No hope of rebuilding. The species that had once ruled the galaxy was gone. And humanity stood alone at the top. ####the throne of the apex predators. Years passed. The Terran Dominion expanded, stretching across the stars, its fleets enforcing the new order. Humanity had gone from the hunted to the hunters, from prey to the galaxy's apex predators. Some still resisted. Some still thought they could challenge the might of the Dominion. But they all learned the same lesson. Humanity did not forgive. Humanity did not forget. And most of all, humanity did not lose, The galaxy had once believed humans to be weak. Now, it whispered their name in terror. Because the age of the Zalrek was over. And the age of humanity had begun.